In August of 2019, Trump announced that he would be imposing tariffs on hundreds of billions worth of Chinese imports. A few days later, China responded by blocking the import of American agricultural goods. What would ensue in the next couple of months would be a resurgence of the trade war between China and the US since 2018. The tariff increase in August caused the American tariffs to be the same as the Chinese. Talks were quickly opened to de-escalate the trade war, and the fiasco ended on December 15th, when the two countries signed the Phase 1 trade agreement, which involved the US and China relaxing tariffs as long as China paid for hundreds of billions worth of American products and cracked down on the theft of American intellectual property. But there was a section of the agreement that China wanted to include that states, in the event of a natural disaster or other unforeseeable event outside of the control of the parties that delays a party from timely complying with its obligations under this agreement, the parties shall consult with each other. Then, oddly enough, 2 weeks later on December 31st, China reported the first case of Ron in Wuhan. In order to understand what happened and how we got into the current global situation, you have to understand the societies and governments of both the United States and China. The United States is decentralized with core roots of individuality, freedom, and personal choice, more so than other Western countries, which are qualities that are unsuited for a global pandemic. This could be a reason why the US is gaining so many more cases than the European counterparts, since in theory, the average American would be quicker to deny wanting to wear a mask, follow guidelines, or getting bossed around by government restrictions compared to other Westerners, whose governments have a much greater presence in their lives. The US has always had an abnormally high case rate for the entire duration of the pandemic. In the first wave, it ran straight through the greater New York area. In the second wave, it hit the rest of the country. The American second wave is slowly ending now, but other Western countries are either growing in cases or experiencing their own second wave, because eventually, no matter what country you're from, you're going to get fed up of sitting inside all day. But comparing the societal and political differences between the US and Europe seem minute when you compare the differences between the US and China. China's society and politics are the polar opposite to the Americans. A very centralized totalitarian government who controls every aspect of the media, economy, and citizens' day-to-day lives. A more totalitarian system gives China an advantage in that aforementioned trade war. You don't have to worry about political pressure ruining your plans, but it's possible China used Ron to outmaneuver the US and get a leg up in the trade war, or actually just a leg up in general. You see, in the beginning of the pandemic, China told the world not to worry and that everything was under control. They even scoffed when countries like the US closed down travel to China and urged others to keep it open. A month later, when other countries were getting hit hard, they didn't really practice what they preached. Heavy restrictions like welding people in their own homes were used to enforce quarantine, something that would never fly in any Western country, though this was instrumental to miraculously flatten the growth of Ron in under a month. But by that time, cases spilled out in Italy and Iran and spread through the rest of the world like fire on dry wood. So while the rest of the world was shut down, China casually opened back up and sent the people back to work. In quarter 1, China lost a good chunk of their GDP, but by quarter 2, their growth was back up and running. How did China not experience a second wave like every other country, you ask? Well, they were either able to completely eliminate a virus from an entire population of 1.4 billion people in a matter of about 3 months with absolutely no one, and I mean like 0 people getting infected to spread the virus again, or they lied. And when you dig around, it's not that shocking. Dozens of Ron whistleblowers got detained and punished for their outreach. Hashtags about Wing Lang and his death trended in China, but was shut down by the government. Crematoriums in Wuhan, operating at an increased rate, haven't lined up with how many people the government state died in the area. But no one has time to look into or speculate your numbers when there's a crisis back at home. They can't even afford to now that China's footing all their production. All of China's Western competitors had their GDP hit hard. The Americans basically have their legs chopped off as GDP dropped 30%. Now China is the one with all the leverage, and they can do whatever they want. Maybe they'll even throw a massive pool party in Wuhan to tell everyone to